There you go, Kiyomi. Thank you. Okay. So this airplane was coming to land. Basically, it landed too early and it hit one of the structures just before the runway. It hit off the wheels, and so it skidded along the rest of the runway. Thankfully, there wasn't any cause of death, but there was some people injured. But this did happen. This isn't a movie, a script, anything like that. So the FAA, of course, had to have an investigation, or the National Transport Safety Board, I should say, and they determined that the possible cause of this accident was the inability to pilot, the misperception of where the airplane was relative to the runway because they were using monovision contact lenses. And so between wearing the contact lenses and the weather and many other things, they further confirmed that pilots should not be using monovision when they are on an airplane. Now remember, there's always two categories, whether you're a driver on a car or whether you're a commercial driver. So whether you drive your own car or whether you drive a maxi, there's two different responsibilities there. There's always two different standards. Okay, because in essence, yes, you're driving and yes, you could crash other people, but you are driving. While if you're a maxi driver, a bus driver, you have a whole lot of people behind you who have no control of what you're doing. So there should be a higher standard. And the same between personal aviation and civil aviation, that the pilot has whatever 200 people behind them, while if you're in your small little airplane, you may just have one or two other people. And so again, monovision is further confirmed that it is not suitable. So again, this is why I wanted to make you understand, and a lot of you don't look at the record card and see what the patient's occupation is. A lot of you say student and you don't look at what course it would be for. And again, now they may be an accountant, but do we ask about the hobbies? And again, you may assume nobody in Trinidad has a private pilot's license, when obviously quite a few people do, because you can see the little airplanes in Piarco. So again, don't assume that they're not going to come to us in UWI because of whatever, and then don't assume they're not going to come to you when you start to work. And again, talk about hobbies. And again, people overall generally do like talking about themselves. And so it can be a good way to start it. And as I said, you may find out something about a hobby you may have been interested in, but you didn't know was happening in Trinidad. Now, the other thing I'm always fascinated about, and again, this whole COVID situation and then the whole thing about false news and fake news. So the FAA and the National Transport Safety Board have determined then that monovision, no, you cannot have monovision because there's a loss of depth perception between distance and near. Yes, they allow monocular pilots. So monocular person who has one eye only. So they've lost their vision because of trauma, because of whatever. Okay, not to do the big airplanes, but to do the small airplanes. So maybe they've lost their vision in one eye because of whatever. Okay, but they could still able to fly their own airplane. So again, it's interesting what you find, because there's a whole debate there now. Why the hell are they banning monovision, which has some semblance of binocularity using the two eyes? Not perfect, but you still can. And yet they still allow monocular pilots to fly their own airplane up and down across the United States. So you see how you always need to look at all sides of the story, because you say, oh yeah, monovision, definitely bad. And yet they don't seem to have weighed that up. But there's a lot of monocular patients out there who can actually go ahead and fly the airplane. So let's get into the real ones that you will know about, okay? So the worst case in relation to clinical anatomy, physiology, as a lot of people said, is microbial keratitis. And microbial keratitis does have the possibility of loss of vision, and in extreme cases, loss of the eye. But it doesn't go as far as killing people. Now, this for sure is something that we don't mess around with. And this is something, as I said, we all need to wake up to. So when you're thinking about contact lenses and their complications, this is the grandfather of them all. This is the worst of the worst of the worst. Now, again, I've seen over time a lot of optometrists and students get confused. What is microbial keratitis? And again, you know, it's important. Let's get the jargon correct. So microbial keratitis, so itis, anything itis, I-T-I-S, is an infection. And kera is the cornea, because there's a lot of diseases with kera in it. So this is an infection of the cornea, keratitis. And what is microbial keratitis? Microbial keratitis is corneal infection caused by a microbe. Now, the current 4th years, the future 4th years, I really hope in your brain now, okay, that you're already thinking about, well, what are the 4 main microbes in the world, basically? And even as I said, future 3rd years, future 2nd years, you should know some of this because you've gone through immunology, microbiology, biochemistry, all these different things. So when we talk about microbial keratitis, we're talking about a corneal infection caused by a microbe, but we really shouldn't leave it at that. We really should think about, well, what is the microbe that's causing it? Because that's a whole different world, as you're about to see. So now, hopefully 4 years and future 4 years, you've tested yourself and you're able to recollect or remember what are those microbes, okay? So there's bacterial. So bacterial keratitis, there's viral keratitis, fungal keratitis, and protozoan keratitis. And they are the main keratitis that we will be experiencing in our daily lives. Now you will see there's a question mark beside viral because there's no link between contact lenses and a viral. Okay, but we're going to discuss it today because there's a great range of people here. So those of you who have already done it, it's a good refresher. Those of you who are going to do it, it would be a good basic introduction for you. So there's bacteria, there's viruses, there's fungus, and there's protozoa. And these are the ones that can cause a corneal infection. The ones that are caused by contact lenses are mainly bacteria, fungus, and the protozoa. Now again, 4 years and future 4 years, I want you, and I hope you are, imagining or imaging what is or how do these look like? Okay, because they're all very, very different. And by the end of your 4 years, for sure, you should be able to notice a difference just by looking at pictures, which I'm going to do now. So when I say bacterial keratitis to you, you should be forming an image in your head. What would I expect to see on the strip lamp? When I say viral keratitis, again, particularly viral, you should be having an image of what you would see. Fungal, again, there's a different picture, and protozoa, again, a different picture. So let's have a look here. So this is bacterial keratitis. So here we have nasty pictures just before dinner time. So at least it's not after dinner time. And you can see, and that's another thing, you know, I love about these complications. You really can't miss them. You know, you'd really want to be off your trolley or rocker, as we would say, to not be able to see these, to understand them and to realize, hang on a second, this doesn't look like a normal cornea. So here you can see various types of ulcers, along with a red eye. And again, we have a discharge and we have a nasty looking eye. So let me test the 4 years and future 4 years. What's the acronym? What is the acronym that we use to gauge how bad anything with the red eye? So when we're thinking about a red eye, we have a special acronym. That's it. Okay, so someone said pedal, and that's excellent. Okay, so let me type this in for all of you. So again, pedal, think of a pedal in a bike. So P is for pain. Okay, so pain. E is for epithelial defect, which is what you're seeing on the pictures here. D is for discharge. Okay, so discharge, so there's watery discharge and there's mucopurulent discharge, sticky discharges. So water discharge and sticky discharge. A is for anterior chamber reaction, which you're going to see in a couple of pictures down the road. And then L is the location. Okay, so you can see a lot of these are big in size and a lot of them are in the center of the visual axis. And definitely here we have the potential to lose lines of vision, if not vision itself. So that's pedal, P for pain, E for epithelial defects, which is what you're looking at now. D is discharge, or watery discharge or a sticky discharge. A is anterior chamber reaction, which isn't here, but it is maybe a little bit on the bottom right one there, but you'll see a better picture. And L is location. Where is it on the cornea? Okay, where is it? Now, of course, you can see the conjunctiva is very red. It looks angry. And, again, you'd want to be very out of the way to miss this. Okay. Now, again, these are mainly caused by contact lenses. But again, don't be naive in thinking that it doesn't happen any other time. So a lot of these are caused by contact lenses, but you can still get bacterial keratitis without contact lens wear, just by the mere fact there's bacteria everywhere along here. Now, what are the risk factors of particularly this? Now, remember, we have gram-positive bacteria, gram-negative bacteria. And so what some people do, and even some optometrists in the United States, is actually culture these. So they take a swab of them, put them into the different Petri dishes with all the various algae and sugars and different things, and try to find out is Pseudomonas, what type of is it that's causing this gram-negative, gram-positive, so we can give the correct therapeutic effect of it for that way. Again, I don't see many ophthalmologists do that here in Trinidad, never mind optometrists, which we would not do particularly, but in the States, optometrists do it. Now, some people say, oh, well, it takes too long in Trinidad to get it cultured in the first place, so let's attack it with the most common antibiotic and then go away. So when we get therapeutics, and listen to that word when, because we are all reliant on you guys to start campaigning the government for us to get therapeutic rights. We should be able to manage these type of things. But one of the fears is that we won't know the difference between these four that I'm going to show you. And we don't know the difference between antibiotic and steroids. Steroids are for inflammation, swelling, etc. Antibiotics, again, for bacteria, will kill the infection. So if you throw a steroid on this, particularly if you don't know what's causing it, then you could just have the whole thing getting worse as it goes along. So as I said, that's why a lot of people, particularly optometrists in the States, will culture this to make sure they know what is causing it and see if it is a bacteria or maybe the other ones, as I'm going to show you. So just be mindful that throwing a steroid at some things like this isn't a good idea, and you're going to see another example when we go on to the other ones. So what are the risk factors, as I was saying? Immediately, the biggest risk factor with contact lenses, the simple fact of wearing your contacts overnight. That is the biggest risk factor. As soon as you fall asleep in your contacts, intentionally or unintentionally, in other words, that the optometrist says you can, or doesn't say you can, whether they are lenses, because there are some lenses designed for overnight wear, doesn't make a difference. Soon as you fall asleep with your contact lenses, you have nearly 5 times, some people say 20 more times, to get an eye infection than someone who doesn't wear contact lenses overnight. Now again, depends if you like to gamble, you do Prayway, the lottery, whatever. 5 times is bad enough for me, never mind 20 times. And I know, because I've had discussions with people in the audience, that some of us have fallen asleep with our contacts unintentionally, and thank God we managed to get away with it. And that's why I always encourage you to read these articles, and there's great ones out there. And you hear patients say, well, you know, doc, I've worn my contacts overnight for years and nothing has ever happened. And that's what it does. As I said, it's like going up a mountain face. You're going up the mountain bit by bit by bit, and then woof, whatever hits, and you fall off the mountain. Because every time one wears the contact lenses overnight, I mean, it's like the 9 lives of a cat, as they say. You're getting more and more and more risky. And that's what just dumbfounds the patients. I never had a problem before. And then bam, they wake up with something like this. And as I said, while this is not life-threatening, this is certainly sight-threatening. And that's why overnight wear, even with FDA-approved lenses, special lenses approved for contact lens wear overnight, you'll still have that risk. Another risk is smoking. So people who smoke and wear contact lenses are thought to be more at risk of microbial keratitis. Again, it's a whole hygiene thing. People who wear lenses and not wash their hands, as we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes. Being a man makes you more at risk because men are not meant to be the most hygienic of people. And here's another question. Let's see, all of you should be able to answer this if you've been reading ahead, particularly future second years. Hyperopes. So hyperope contact lens wearers have been found to be more at risk of keratitis than those who are myopic. Anybody remember why, or anybody think about why? So as I said, some people send in private messages, so that's excellent if you're a little bit shy. Some people send in messages in the everyone chat. Why are hyperopes more at risk than a myopic for these type of things? Great. Okay, so people saying the thickness of the lens. Great. So where it is the thickness of a positive lens, where it is the most thickness? So at least 3 of the years should be able to answer this. That's it. So a positive lens is thicker in the center than it is in the edge, and that's true for contact lenses. And remember, the thicker the lens, the less oxygen that gets through it. And a myope, it's the opposite. It's thicker in the edge and thinner in the middle. And so that is one reason why it's thought that the hyperopes are more at risk for something like this. But for sure, the biggest one is overnight wear. As I said, hygiene, not using the contact lenses correctly, not washing their hands, not using the solutions. We're going to see more examples of that as well. But overnight wear, simple thing. And as I said, there's bacteria everywhere, no matter where you are at this moment in time. Put your hand to the left, put your hand to the right, put your feet on the ground, there's bacteria there. Now, some of it won't affect you and some of it will, but the thing about bacteria, it's very opportunistic. So if you have the slightest corneal defect, the bacteria, hey, there's an entry point, and then we get things like this. Now, again, for those of you who haven't done the contact lens courses yet, it's still a minute risk. There are millions, billions of contact lens wearers out there, and nothing ever happens to them. So don't let me put you off contact lenses, but we need to be aware that these things happen, particularly if they wear the lenses overnight, intentionally or unintentionally, and you told them not to. They smoke. I mean, if you're a man, you can't stop being a man. Again, if you're a hyperope, you can't stop being a hyperope. Young people are more at risk because young people seem to not understand the risks, but definitely smoking and overnight wear and not washing your hands and using the solutions, they are the changeable risk factors for you. Okay. So again, remember, if anybody has any questions, please let us know. So as I said, that's bacteria. Now this, reasonably easy to treat. We have antibiotics. And again, if you've been studying your medicines and you've been looking at health stories, there's a lot more antibiotic resistance out there. So we have 4th generation antibiotics, and even some of those now are becoming ineffective. So that's why you should never use antibiotics if you don't need to. And if you ever are prescribed antibiotics, whether it's for an ear infection, nose infection, any other type of infection, finish the course so that your body would be able to get these antibodies. But there is a resistance. But normally, from all the things I'm going to show you, these are the easier ones to treat. And again, in some states in the United States, optometrists do treat this. Okay. So now we have viral keratitis. And again, for all of you, you can't miss this either. You really can't. Because it has this very, very distinctive pattern on the eye. So you can call it like a Christmas tree effect. You know, you can call it, what some people think it's like the hands of a gecko or a lizard, the way they have it like this. Whatever way it sticks in your head, this dendritic effect here, where you have this tree, these kind of spike coming out, is very, very characteristics of a viral keratitis. And again, there are different types of viruses, but there are 2 main ones. And again, if you think of pedal, so this is quite painful, quite painful. You have the epithelial defect, which is what's been shown in the pictures here. Okay, you don't particularly get the discharge as you would in bacteria. You may not get the anterior chamber reaction, and the location, as you can see, can be other things, but you certainly have pain. Because remember, the cornea has a huge amount of nerves, and so anything like this is going to irritate the hell out of you. Now, some studies have shown that the pain may actually come a little bit sooner than the epithelial defect, so just watch out for that. Now, again, this is a virus, so it's just one of those things, so there's not that much of a relationship between this and contact lenses. Okay, but just to be aware of it, viral keratitis is particularly nasty. It can damage the cornea. It doesn't spread per se like bacteria would, but it is quite a painful experience. And again, it can also, there's different viruses, as I said, and sometimes you can get it going along the nerves, the facial nerves, so you can have scalp, you can have nose, you can have a lot of things. And sometimes it spurs the eyes and sometimes it doesn't. And as I said, shingles, older version called shingles. And as I said, depending on what's causing shingles, you can have it affecting the eye or just affecting the scalp and having that kind of nasty pain as well. But it's very distinctive. As I said, 4th years, future 4th years, you can't miss this. Future 3rd years, you should know this if you don't know it by now. And 2nd year as well, you will definitely know that eventually. You cannot miss this. Okay, that kind of Christmas tree, fern-like, people say kind of, you know, gecko hand types. Do watch out for it. Now again, this is not as easy to treat as the bacterial keratitis, but there is antiviral gels and ointments, which again in the US optometrists can do. You can also give antiviral medication tablets, so oral tablets. That's the power of optometry in the United States. So they write you a prescription for the gel and ointment, and also write you oral tablets that you'll take before or after meals, depending on what it is. Now, because it's a virus, remember that it's going to have to take time for everything to eradicate itself, just like as we see with COVID. COVID is a virus, okay? So again, it can be a very prolonged, drawn out prognosis, but again, it's something that is manageable. And while there's not particularly a risk of sight-threatening loss that way, the pain is unbelievable, as I said to you. And if it is like the middle one, it's in the center, which is the whole pedal thing, then that is going to scar. Okay, so that one in the middle, you can see, can't find my hand here. This is going to scar, and so that will give some loss of vision. But again, I just have it here to compare for all the, because of very four distinctive presentations, and this is no association between contact lens complications and viral keratitis, but do know it, and as I said, you can't miss it. So then we're getting a little bit worse. We have fungal keratitis. Okay, so again, we have very distinct presentations, as they said, and here the vast majority of fungal keratitis kind of have this wispy, crowd-like, as you see when you look at the sky, feathery presentation. They don't have distinct edges as the bacteria keratitis would have, kind of a little bit more feathery that way. And again, if you want to pedal, pain, epithelial defect, discharge, anterior chamber reaction, here we have it here on the bottom left one, this collection of white blood cells here. Okay, this is anterior chamber reaction. So again, you can see when you're looking at the pedal acronym, this certainly has now upped its game and certainly needs to be treated. Now, I think, colleagues, again, that you should know here, yeah, that this is obvious. I mean, if you look at this, you can't go, I wonder if this is normal or abnormal. I wonder, do I just tell them to come back in a week's time, or should I do something about it? So again, that's the nice thing about optometry. Sometimes these complications just show themselves and you really can't miss it. You'd want to be off your rocket or trolley, as I said, to miss this. Now let's cast your mind back. Definitely semester 2 of first year for all of you, if not semester 1 for the more recent people. And the one thing I'm obsessed about is history. And this is very easily diagnosed from history because it's a fungus cause of fungal keratitis. Now, where is fungus? Because fungus normally doesn't grow on your table, doesn't grow on your bed, it doesn't grow, on the ground that way, it doesn't grow in your car. Where does it grow? It grows outside. So there's some type of history of a trauma connected to being outside. So maybe they were in the forest, maybe they were in their garden, maybe they were digging up, maybe they were pruning, maybe they were doing something, smelling roses, whatever. And then a twig got in their eye, or soil got in their eye, or a branch got in their eye, or something happened that way. So if you think about life in general, that you don't normally see fungal infections everywhere around. Okay, normally it's an outside history. So if you're not sure, gosh, is this bacterial or is this fungal? As I said, one, the presentation's a little bit different for the vast majority of them. It's a little more puffy, it's a little bit more feathery, but there's always some history of trauma, and it's normally trauma outside. They were doing something in the garden, or they were doing hiking, or some type of thing, and something scratched off the cornea, and then you had that transfer of whatever fungus was there is now come into the cornea. Now, again, when we get therapeutics, this is nothing to mess with. This is out the door. Thank you, Mrs. Smith, but you're going to see somebody. Okay, go see an ophthalmologist. Because it's very, 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 very difficult to treat fungal infections of the eye, for sure. So you're going to have systemic medication, and you're going to have eye drops, but there isn't that many antifungal eye drops. Why isn't there? Because this is quite rare. So as we're going down this list, it's getting more and more rare. Okay, it's very rare to have a fungal infection. But that also means that there isn't much way of treating it, and it can be a very prolonged treatment of in and out of hospitals, putting drops in, taking medication, IV, and different things. Because fungus is quite a nasty infection. So that's why don't try to challenge it yourself. I don't know of any optometrists who would take on fungal infections because it needs a lot of stuff. It needs an IV and a lot of things if it's quite severe. But again, if you look at the presentation, it is quite a easy one to figure out once you listen to the patient and figure out there's a history of trauma and some organic matter. Now, again, some students take things literally. Well, you said outside, but my patient got hit in the twig inside. Well, okay. It's the twig bit, it's the branch, it's the roses, it's the whatever that got into the eye, which most times are outside. But I mean, if it happens inside, it's still an organic matter. And so always suspect fungal keratitis. Don't take it on by yourself. Send it out to an ophthalmologist, and even they will have their sweat running down their head because it isn't easy to treat. Now you may say, well, what's this got to do with contact lenses? Well, the problem is that if you are wearing contact lens, so let's say you went out into the garden and you got a twig in your eye, a branch in your eye, and you didn't think about it. Well, these things happen. And then you go out that night wearing a contact lens. Remember, the contact lens is like a bandage. And now you've trapped that fungus in between the contact lenses and the scratch in the cornea. So now the fungal keratitis will spread an awful lot quicker. So that's the issue, that anytime someone has a scratch or trauma to the eye, we should not be wearing contact lenses. And again, the current contact lens solutions are not designed to kill fungal infections of the contact. So again, maybe they were doing some pottering, maybe they were doing some planting, maybe they were digging up plants and there's soil on their hands, and then they take off the contact lenses and they put it into the contact lens pots. Well, now you may find that you've infected the contact lenses with fungal, and then you put it in the eye as well. Again, it's rare, but just because it's rare, it doesn't mean it's impossible. And again, hopefully, those who have been in clinic and gone through these courses will now know what's happening after this. And that's the protozoan keratitis, which is the worst of the worst of the worst, depending, of course, on your outlook on it. And the most common one here is acanthamoeba. So acanthamoeba keratitis. So a protozoa is a microbe that normally could be in a cyst. It remains dormant. It doesn't always have to be active. And then for some reason, when it's in the cornea, it decides to kick off and we get these complications. Now, I see a lot of textbooks and a lot of webinars talking about acanthamoeba, and they talk about this stromal ring-like infiltrate infection here. And here's another more obvious one in the middle. And a lot of people make this as the key diagnostic. Oh yeah, that's acanthamoeba keratitis. But students, again, if you wait for this to present as it is, so you can confirm acanthamoeba keratitis. Well, think about pedal again. So P, pain, we'll talk about that in a second. E, epithelial defect. Well, hello, I mean, this is a massive defect. Discharge and anterior chamber reaction for sure. Location, look at it, it's a big ring in the middle of the cornea. And so while this may be a diagnostic criteria for the acanthamoeba keratitis, don't wait for it to be sure that this is it. Because once you've got to this stage, those protozoa are well taken over that cornea. And this is not even sight threatening. This is vision loss or even eye removal threatening if it's not, again, picked up on time. Now, for the future second years, again, don't start to panic because this is quite rare in itself, but it is highly linked to contact lens wear. 70–80% of all patients who get this have worn contact lenses before it happened or during it happened. So it is something you should always have in the back of your mind. but it in itself is quite rare. All of these are quite rare once everybody uses common sense. But the trouble is, because it's so rare, you may forget about it. But even though it's rare, it's dangerous. And again, this is nothing that you should be treating. Even ophthalmologists don't want to treat this. This is the worst of the worst. So you have microbial keratitis, which is the worst of the corneal infections. Now we have the worst of the microbial keratitis. This is damn difficult to treat. And this is, again, in and out of hospitals, all types of eye drops, systemic medication, etc. But if one waits until we get this stromal ring infiltrate, we're way too late. And that's why I'm showing you the picture on the right there, because this is normally the first presentation of it. Yes, the eye is red, but if you compare it to the other two pictures, it's actually quiet because you don't have an epithelial defect. Maybe you have the discharge. You don't have any anterior chamber information, okay, reaction, and location. Well, where's the location? There's nothing to see there. So you have no epithelial defect, you have no discharge, you have no anterior chamber reaction, and L for the location, well, there isn't any. But what did I forget? Or what did I not mention? Pain. That is the key diagnostic of acanthamoeba keratitis. A pain like never before on a reasonably quiet eye. So the pain is out of proportion to what you would see when you examine this patient. So invariably it comes, hey doc, my eye is so painful. Oh, okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, remember we all did LOTSI, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is it? 10, 100 if I could give you 100. And then you put them on the slit lamp and you don't see anything. There's no epithelial defect. We're looking at the right here now, the right picture. No epithelial defect, no discharge, no anterior chamber reaction, nothing. All you have is pain. Now again, don't get confused. There has to be some other factors normally with this acanthamoeba keratitis. And where did you get that information from? History. Good old history. So as I said, there's a strong link between contact lens wear and acanthamoeba. So the very top one, bacterial keratitis, lots of people can get eye infections from bacteria without even wearing contacts. This, as I said, has a huge percentage, 70 to 80% connected with contacts. But there's more. Somewhere along the line, they've gone off the rails and your contact lens wearer has not done what they should have. So again, 4 years and future 4 years, this should be coming off out of your mouth very, very easily. One, they've worn their contacts in water. Now, whether it's seawater, pool water, river water, acanthamoeba is everywhere. And it's not just in, as some people say, third world countries, even though we're not that, we're not claimed to be a third world country anymore. It's everywhere. It's in the United States, it's in England, it's in everywhere. Acanthamoeba is in the water everywhere. But again, as I said, this is another opportunistic microbe. Even more so, if it gets into your cornea, it can lie dormant until it decides to wreak havoc. Bacteria normally fight away one time. This is a different kettle of fish, as we would say. So there's some history of water. They wore the contact lenses in the sea, in the pool, in the river, okay? Or they've been in a hot tub or a sauna. Okay, so you have this high moisture content of it that way. Now, again, I've heard students think, well, you know, we're already in a hot country, and so nobody would have a hot tub. So again, you're completely misinformed that that's the case. Maybe some of you do have hot tubs, but it's certainly not a rarity But some people in different parts of Trinidad would have a hot tub. And then you may think of a sauna. I mean, it's already, we have air conditioning, we have fans. Why would anybody want to be in a sauna? But again, yes, it may not be very common as it would be, particularly in Northern Europe, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, the Scandinavian countries, for sure. But there are 1 or 2 houses there that have saunas for whatever reason, but they still do. But never mind that. And that's why I'm happy there's such a range of students here today, because we all need to open our perspectives. Because sometimes when I talk about skiing, people are Trinis don't ski. Well, of course they don't ski here. But I know lots of Trinis, more than one would expect, that for whatever reason, because I can't stand skiing, but over Christmas they will go up to Colorado, go up to all the Colorado and Utah, and go over to Connecticut and do skiing. Okay. Great. So someone's after saying there's saunas at the gym here, at the various gyms in Trinidad. So thank you. There you go. That's the beauty of having these webinars so we can all be updated. And again, people travel a lot more than ever before. Yes, for me, it's still expensive to travel while you have these cheap airlines in Europe, when you can travel from one country to another for 150 TT. 20 US, you can go from Ireland to the south of France. 150 TT. Here, it costs $400 even to go to Barbados, Jamaica, US, whatever. Okay, but anyway, so people do travel though, and people get to all over the world. So don't dismiss hot tubs and saunas. So they've warned their contact lenses in hot tubs and saunas, which is not recommended at all. And then the last one, so you ask about, do you ever swim with your contact lenses? Do you ever wear your contact lenses in saunas and hot tubs? And then the last one is that for whatever reason, they've gone off again, the rails, and instead of using contact lens solutions to store the lenses, they're using water to store the lenses because they saw it on the internet. Well, it's cheap, it's maybe free. I don't need a contact lens solution, so they're using water. Now remember, as I said, acanthamoeba is everywhere in the world in the water system. Even if it's chlorinated, fluorinated, whatever the water system is, it's there. And these contact lens solutions are not designed to be that effective. Okay. Water doesn't have any antimicrobial properties to it. So you shouldn't allow your patients to store them in water. The saline, okay, which is a salty solution, but again, some people, for whatever reason, make their own saline. You can buy salt tablets in the pharmacy, put them in water, and now you have saline. But saline really should not be coming into the conversation of contact lens care neither. And another reason why some people get any of these keratitis, apart from viral, is they top up the contact lens solution. Instead of using fresh contact lens solutions, they top up the contact lens solutions. And that can apply to any of the three, because viral is not really a contact lens complication. They're not using new solution every time. They just keep putting more and more of the new solution on top of the old solution because they're cheap, or they think they're saving themselves money. But if you look at these two eyes, the one on the left and the middle, you're not saving money when you're going to have to spend week after week after week going to the ophthalmologist. Now you might say, well, it's free of charge in the health system, fair enough, but you're going to have to take time off work, or you're going to have to buy drops, or you're going to have to do a lot of things. And then, as I said, never mind be sight threatening, this is vision threatening altogether. And if it goes out of the way, you may actually have to lose the eye. So just be mindful that it looks nasty, but if it gets to this stage, you've missed the boat. So a pain that's out of proportion to what you see, don't just miss it and let them go home. Ah, whatever, you must have got allergies or must have got something, you know, a bug, an insect in your eye, just go home. Pain out of proportion go on to history if you haven't done that already. Have you been using water with the contacts? So have you been swimming in the rivers, the sea, the pools? Have you been able to, have you been using them in hot tubs and saunas? And then are you using water to look after them? And then, as I said, they may be topping up the solution, but that's for most of them that way. So again, let's see if those who, particularly in the clinical years, and those who've done the contact lenses, what's one way of minimizing, apart from not wearing contacts, what type of lens will minimize all of these keratitis? So that is one form of lens that would minimize all of these risks of keratitis. Right, so someone said gas permeable for sure, but as most people wear soft, it's daily disposables or single-use lenses. Okay, so you'll hear people call daily disposable single-use lenses, people talking about them, but these would minimize a lot of these because you have a new lens every time. So they cannot use the contact lens solutions incorrectly. They would get rid of them, so there's no way to infect them with fungus or bacteria, etc. And if you have people who insist in swimming with their contacts, which they shouldn't, again, they should be using single-use lenses. Because then when they come out of the swimming pool, not initially, but whenever they get out of the swimming pool, over 20 minutes, particularly the sea actually makes your lenses stick onto your eye. So if anybody swims in the sea and comes out, don't let them take off their contact lenses immediately. Let them settle to get rid of all the salt and all that, take them off, throw them away. That is not getting rid of the risks, it's minimizing the risk. And again, if they do insist, that's one way of doing it. So that is the complications. There's a hell of a lot more, but as I knew we'd have quite a range of people, I just wanted to go through the biggies, and we went from the worst of infections, which is microkeratitis, and then we've come to the worst of the worst, which is acanthamoeba. Anybody have any questions, comments, anything that way? Okay. Let's go on to the other topics. We won't be as long, but they are just as interesting. So anybody think of one positive feature, think to yourself of one positive feature of COVID-19, because we know there's a hell of a lot of negative ones, but what's a positive one in relation to contacts particularly? Okay. That's it. One of the greatest things, as the student just said, people now realize, oh, hang on a second, we're meant to wash our hands. As if it was something we never had to do before. And now you see people washing their hands everywhere. So I went to the supermarket this morning, and of course you have to wash your hands that way. Exactly, as another student saying, you're forcing people to become more hygienic. And now you see hand sanitizers left, right, and center. And it will be funny. I often think, you know, I don't know how long this is going to last, but maybe 20 years time, if we still have sinks outside Massey's and True Value, people wonder, why do we have sinks outside these shops? Where did that come from? You know, if aliens come down and wonder, why do they have sinks outside the things? We never saw that before. But yes, it's certainly something new. Okay. People think that this hand washing is a new invention, when particularly with contacts, but even life, after the washroom, going before you're going to cook dinner, before you eat, before anything, we should always have been washing our hands. And now you see these posters, as I said, as if it's a whole new thing. And all of you, if you look up correct hand washing technique, and then look at how you do it, particularly when you're in the clinic, I think a lot of you would be very, very shocked that we might just do, and then that's it. And it should be at least 20, 30 seconds of hand washing. And again, I'm often amazed when I go to Massey, True Value, whatever, and they just, some people barely turn on the water, and then that's COVID gone. Okay, so that is one of the positives of COVID. We definitely become, well, more emphasis on becoming more hygienic. Okay. Now I want to assure everybody here that there has been no proof of transmission from the eye from another person. So contact lenses isn't going to give people COVID, and if people are swapping contact lenses, people do, it isn't going to give people COVID. And initially, when all this madness happened, there was directives from the various optical bodies that we should not even do NCT, which is the puff of air test. So there was this fear that the puff of air would then give tear droplets into other people's faces, and that's how we would transmit COVID to each other, and that has never been substantiated either. So there's no proof that the flora in the eye is able to transmit from one person to another or onto machinery or whatever. That has not been proven at all. So there is no reason why you should stop wearing contacts during COVID. Again, we use common sense, wash our hands, and different things. Okay, so if you do hear people talking about anything to do with that, ask them to show you the research, and that will definitely stop them in their tracks, because again, there is no proof that contact lenses and or wearing contacts or just the eye itself can transmit COVID. That has never been shown. Okay. Now, for those of you, again, who are not familiar, okay, so does anybody think, what is the business side effect of COVID and contact lenses? So again, you don't even need to be fourth year to think about this. What could be one possible side effect of COVID and contact lenses? Not that businesses were not open and all that, but in relation to contact lenses and COVID, what do you think people have noticed? Maybe yourself, maybe you have noticed it among your family or yourself in relation to contact lenses. Great. Okay, so this is a contact lens wearer because I know them, and they said they're not wearing their contact lenses as often. Exactly. Even me, I have on my spectacles now. Okay, that's it. More people at home that much rather wear their spectacles. Exactly. So that's one thing optometrists have noticed, that people who would normally order lenses an awful lot more frequently are now not ordering because there's nowhere to go. Okay, we still can't go to the beaches, we can go to supermarkets, we can only go curbside restaurants, etc., but we can't actually go anywhere. And that is the biggest reason why people wear contacts, cosmetic and things like sport and socializing. So when all that has been taken away from us, then there isn't much need for contacts, and certainly people now have boxes of contacts in their house, or they're down to the last one or two pairs and they don't have any need for it. Okay, thought I had another. Oh yeah, here it is. So what is the one main ocular feature of COVID? So the one thing that people have reported is conjunctivitis. So where the conjunctiva again becomes infected, and so you can have red eye. So do watch out for that. If you are suspicious of yourself having COVID and you're not too sure, remember, loss of smell, loss of taste, but some people have been known to have conjunctivitis. Now, of course, there's going to be much further research on what the long-term effects of COVID is, but conjunctivitis is the main one that way. So then one of the last topics was myopia control. And again, this is why it's always good to come into these type of webinars. And again, different people, different things, but people now are suggesting we get away from myopia control and we call it myopia management. So why do they call it myopia management instead of control? Because in essence, we're not controlling the myopia. It kind of gives impression. So research has shown that myopia control gives people the impression that we are controlling the myopia to eradicate it, which will never happen unless we get into genetics. So myopia management seems to fall more on the research with patients. You're managing something, but it doesn't mean you're eradicating it. It doesn't mean you're getting rid of it. Now, again, those who have been in the clinical years, you should be able to answer this question. What are the most common means of myopia management? Now, one of the things for all of you, myopia management, my screen that way. something is better than nothing. So no matter where you are on your educational journey to be an optometrist, myopia, short-sightedness is nothing to be dismissed. Now, those of you who are already myopic, and most of you should be 19, 20, over than that, unfortunately, it's too late for you. But maybe you have a 7-year-old sister, 7-year-old brother, or 5-year-old niece, anything that way. It can't be dismissed nowadays. There's so much evidence out there that myopia can be managed for the vast majority of people. And so again, future third years, when you start seeing patients and the parents tell you, because we don't see kids at the moment, that, oh, I have a 7-year-old kid and, you know, are they going to be short-sighted? You need to start acting that way. The mere fact, education on myopia is myopia management. Getting the word around that myopia does have devastating effect. And now we optometrists, particularly optometrists, because we're the ones leading it, do have a way to manage it. And two things that we can do for free, apart from education. One, get the kids outside. So 2 hours a day of natural light has been shown to delay the onset of myopia. Now, once they become myopic, it doesn't make a difference. There's no point telling them to go outside, but it has been shown to delay the onset of myopia. And get away from these devices. Again, a 2-hour break, ideally outside, away from the tablets, the laptops, and the cell phones, has been shown to delay the onset of myopia, not stop myopia if you already are myopic, but to delay it. And think about what's happening. For the last year, maybe your younger brothers and sisters have been on these laptops because that's how education was being taught. So it'll be interesting to see how much more people become myopic. So there's 3 things we can do for free. Educate parents that myopia has a strong genetic link and it needs to be acted upon. 2, outdoor natural light 2 hours a day has been shown to delay the onset. And then 3, get away from excessive near work, take breaks from the computer screens, but even textbooks, anything at near at that age, excessively is causing problems. So what do we have in relation to contacts? Well, the most effective of all the different options that we used to have was ortho-K. So orthokeratology is just like dental braces or dental retainers. So if any of you did or are wearing braces, it's the same effect. So you can see the cornea here without a lens. Then we put on a gas permeable lens, one of the hard lenses. And the way it's designed, it will actually mold that cornea into a different shape. It's worn overnight, so the person goes to sleep with them. Because it's gas permeable, there is less risk of infection. There's still a risk, but a lot less risk. And then when they wake up, they just take it off, and then they go on there every day. And then when they go to bed again, they put on the contacts and off they go. Now, this is proven to be shown very effective on myopia management. Now, this is overnight. So the kid goes to sleep, then wakes up, takes them out. So a lot of people do like this, but then you do have to weigh up that there's still a tiny, tiny, tiny risk of an eye infection. So if they don't wash their hands, they're not fitted properly, they don't come back for their aftercare checks, then it will cause problems. How effective? 42%. So it can delay or slow down the progression of myopia by 42%. So if your child was projected to be a -6, then this would end up to be roughly -4. And again, for those of you still new to optometry, there's a hell of a difference between -6 and being -4. The more myopic you are, the more likely things are going to go wrong. So being a -6 and being -4 is a hell of a difference that way. So that's why something is better than nothing. Now, one of the things about Auto-K, it's not suitable for everybody. You can't have much corneal astigmatism, and there's only a certain prescription range, -1 to -6. Now, there are research papers showing that you can do Auto-K on positive hypermetropic patients, but it's not as effective as these myopic patients. But also soft multifocals can also be effective. So again, multifocals are normally for those people over the age of 40, but again, this has been shown that soft multifocals can be effective. Now, these should be center distance, which some of you would learn over the next semester. And there is limited number of center distance multifocal on the TNT market. And they are kind of expensive, but look how effective it is, 42% of the delay in the progression. Now, again, it's this issue about kids and contact lenses, but again, the risks of getting an eye infection compared to the risks of being myopic at the age of 40 or later, of retinal detachment, glaucoma, cataracts have been shown to outweigh that small little risk once you wash your hands and don't go to bed with them for these soft lenses than the risks of the myopic damage in the future. Now, this again is a huge area. And as I said, we could have several lectures of this. But this has been led by optometry, and here's a future development, is a lens called CooperVision MySight. And it has been proven to be 59% effective of delaying or slow down the progression of myopia. So if you think about that -6 person again, instead of being -6, they're going to have roughly to be 2.5 diopters. Think about that. They were on the road to being a -6, and now they're on the road to be -2.5 roughly. I mean, that is amazing. So any of you who are -6 and you have kids who are more than likely going to be -6, now we have ways that on average they would end up being -2.5. And again, that is something that is fascinating, and the ability for us to do it and to have that myopia management is very, very important. Now, this is not available in Trinidad at the moment. It's not easily available anywhere, quite frankly. There's a few little issues. CooperVision need one to go on a training course, but you need you to make an investment in their lenses, to buy their lenses up front, which is normally not how it's done. So there are some issues in availability and for both patients and optometrists, and it's not available in Trinidad anyway. But also, if you do know nieces, nephews, whatever in the States, in the United Kingdom, they're not that easily available anyway. So it's whatever CooperVision marketing way, there's a select number of people who can fit these in the United States and in the United Kingdom. But hopefully, as they become more and more prevalent, we will be able to fit them as well. So in relation to myopia management, no matter what scale you are on the stage of education, if you know you have a 5-year-old niece, nephew, brothers and sisters, and you're myopic, your parents myopic, or their parents are myopic, there's a strong likelihood they will be myopic, but now we, as optometrists, have something to do. Now, there are other ways for myopia management. As I said, we could have a whole lecture in itself, but something is better than nothing. So even different types of spectacles can make a difference. And even if they don't need spectacles at this moment in time, but you're short-sighted, your parents are short-sighted, and this kid is 5 or 7 years old, kicking them out for 2 hours a day in natural light, get them away from these devices instead of being on them constantly, will delay the onset. Not get rid of myopia, but will delay the onset of it. So to summarize, yes, there's always a risk of an infection with contact lenses. And so you and the patient need to work together. Again, I will tell you, and I have told you, some optical stores just show people videos. Well, here, this is how you look after contacts. And then they just expect people to know one time. So you need to not scare them, but do make them aware of the risks. And there are some optometry practice that would show those nasty pictures that I showed you this afternoon, this evening. And then some people say, no, no, you shouldn't do that because you're going to scare the life out of them. They'll never want contacts. But as I always say, as soon as you step out the door, I mean, you're taking a risk getting knocked down by a maxi or some drunk driver or anything, people not wearing their spectacles mashing into your car. So there's always risk no matter where you are. Our job is to minimize it. Don't wear contact lenses overnight. Try not to smoke. Wash your hands. Use the solutions. Don't use water, etc. COVID has not been shown to be dangerous to contact lens wear, so people can continue on as normal. And that normal was always not a new normal. They're normal. Wash their hands. Don't fall asleep. Exactly what I just said. And then we all, whether you are a future second year or a future graduate, we all have a part to play in myopia management. There's no reason why not to. There's something that could be done about it. When I was in university, there was nothing you could do about it. But now, time and time again, it's been shown that it is possible. And optometry is in the lead role of myopia management. And it's getting to that stage, guys, getting to that stage where the tipping point, if you've ever read that book, the tipping point, where there will be more people doing myopia management than optometrists who are not. And soon, it will be asked in the courts, Mr. Smith, why didn't you do myopia management on this kid? All your other colleagues would have done it. Why didn't you do it? Just like how dilation is the new norm. Diabetics need to be dilated. And particularly in the States and the UK, if you don't dilate a diabetic, you are going against the norm. If you don't dilate a diabetic, you can be struck off because that is the norm. Diabetics dilate. And again, that will soon be the norm in Trinidad and Tobago. And it's getting there for myopia management. It's getting there for myopia management. So again, I'd like to thank the executive of TTOSA. I hope you found the presentation informative. And if anybody has any questions, if anybody has any comments, let us know. But as I always tell you, we are the primary eye care providers in Trinidad and Tobago and the world. We need to educate our patients. It's our job. Don't leave it to the patients. Don't leave it to the internet, Dr. Google, who says it's okay to wear lenses overnight, who says that COVID gives you a reason to stop wearing lenses. And Dr. Google tells you that myopia management is quackery. And there's millions, well, not millions, but there's thousands of research papers that show it is effective and it is not quackery. That's the last thing I would always hate. They don't get the information from you, they get it from Google. And I know some of you love Wikipedia. It ain't a source of fact. You should be the source of fact, which is why I'm so glad to see so many of you here today to give you this brief overview of the various components that I was asked to do. So thank you very much. Thank you for your time. And if anybody has any questions, thank you. That's nice to hear. Thank you. You're welcome. Any questions? You're welcome. Thank you. Kiyomi, any questions on your side? Anybody send you any messages?
No, sir.
Okay. Let's stop sharing. You're welcome. Thank you so much. We're going to see a lot of views over the next couple of days and weeks, and I look forward to that. Okay.
Okay, thank you so very much, Mr. Farnon, for that concise but very informative presentation. I'm sure we've all learned something new or have our memory refreshed in some way. I would just like to invite our Vice President, Anil Ramsran.
Good afternoon, guys. Firstly, I would like to say a special thanks to Dr. Farnon for taking the time out of his weekend on rather busy schedule to accommodate us and inform us on the general contact lens health, myopia control with contact lens, and contact lens use during the pandemic. We really appreciate it. I know this would be very valuable information for everyone, especially the new year twos, as well as year threes and fours. And a special thanks to all the years that made it here today. And lastly, I would like to thank the members of TTOSA for helping to put together this first webinar for 2021-2022. Yeah, and be on the lookout for more informative webinars soon to come. Thank you, and please be safe, everyone. Goodbye, guys.
Bye-bye, everybody. Be safe. Have a great weekend. Thanks all for being here. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.